So I've been doing this podcast for just over 3 years and I really want to bring it live for you all. So I'm going to need a favor from you. If you're interested in seeing the Savvy Wallet podcast live, please register your interest by signing up to my mailing list with the link in the description of this episode. Thank you so much for your support so far.
Banks do not lend money. Let me make it clear. You know, like you go out and earn money and you take it and you lend £100 to your friends. Banks don't do that. So what they do is, if you want to borrow £10,000, the bank creates the £10,000. It's called new money. When you pay off that £10,000, the £10,000 gets deleted off the system. It doesn't exist, but you're paying interest. So the interest is where the bank earns their money. You have to understand money first before you play the game, because money's a game. There's various reasons why people get into debt. They have to understand that that is not your money. So credit, you use it because it's there. But if it's not there, then you're only going to live to your means. It is a carrot for you to put yourself in a situation. And there's several carrots. Even a 0% credit card is a carrot. People find themselves in a worse situation than what they should be based on their actions. So if you don't address it in the correct way, and you're not going to know how to address it because there's a rule book that you don't have. For example, with unsecured debts, which should not be any more than a default if you're struggling, can end up being a CCJ, etc. Let me tell you, it is unnecessary for that to happen. And also, the credit report is an obsession with people. If you're struggling with debt, what you're protecting is the ability to get into more debt. Always communicate. Don't not communicate. When you're not communicating, as per the guidance, as per the rules, it allows them to take a different pathway with you. And this is so key. I'm going to tell you now, whatever you offer the lender or the debt collector, they cannot refuse it.
You're not defined by where you come from.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big message that I always want to tell people. Like
you have to be able to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
When you grow up in ends, you don't realize it when you're confident, but you have an audacity to do things that ordinarily most people wouldn't be willing to do.
Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Atto. We have a special guest in the building. We have Oye, who is the founder of The Real Debt Guy, working in the subject of debt for over 18 years. Oye, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah. No, I'm really looking forward to this one because, you know, we have talked a little bit about debt on the podcast, but we haven't talked in that much debt. And because you've worked in it, I think it's going to be very interesting for people to like have a, you know, good understanding of it. But obviously, I introduce you. Who would you say Oye is?
Oye, well, I'm the founder of The Real Debt Guy, but I'm a person who's passionate about helping people in this subject of debt. When we're talking about working in it, I self-taught myself about the subject about 18 years ago. And as the things have changed, as I've learned more and as I've grown, I've found how the system works and how to best help people in the subject of debt.
Yeah.
So I'm a kind of person who always look like I look after the little guy. I don't like bullies. So when I see a situation where I think people need a lot of help and they don't have the correct help, then I'll step in.
Yeah. I love that. And I was telling you offline, I've watched your videos on YouTube. They've come out. So it's an honor to have you on the podcast and to talk about that.
Appreciate it.
Walk us through, you know, like the life experiences that have made you the person you are today.
Oh, well, first of all, I used to work for a company. I used to work in IT sales. And even though it was good money, I was always of the mindset that I need to do something that's impactful. And I actually didn't know what to do. And you know, when you have a mindset and there's something that you want to do and opportunities arise. And it so happened that I met a friend. I left the job that I was doing and I started doing my own businesses. So small businesses, I started doing limousines and IT as well. But then I met a friend who started talking about the subject of debt. And he came from a place where he found himself in a situation and he had money in his bank account and it was for the month, and the bank just took the money. And it made him quite upset and quite angry about it. So he started trying to understand how the whole system works. So we spoke about it and it began from there. And I think the turning point that made me really started doing, for example, I started on YouTube really before the Real Debt Guy, transitioned from YouTube to the Real Debt Guy, is I was helping a lot of people. It's friends first, then friends of friends, family, because we started, people knew that I understood the subject and they would speak to me about it. And I spoke to one woman who retired. She was a retired lady and she took out borrowing to help someone. Now, what happened is this person was unable to pay the debt. So the woman, instead of making the other person pay the debt, she took the responsibility to herself. Now, what happened is the debt got moved to a debt collector and to a debt collector solicitor. And back then the rules were a bit different. And what happened was the solicitor of the debt collector convinced this woman to give up all the money that she saved for her retirement to pay the debt when she didn't. And that was the turning point for me. That just created a beast in me.
That's mad.
Because I was like, this cannot even be happening, because it was a very good person who did something out of the kindness of her heart, and she was taken advantage of because she believed something that is not actually correct. Yeah. Yeah. And so that's when when I started doing YouTube, I actually came onto YouTube and I was like, YouTube came to me because I thought this is the only place where people are actually going to hear the message and see exactly how to deal with a situation like this and to try and help as many people as I can. I thought if I do YouTube, even if I help 10 people, that's 10 people that it's made a difference to.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was how I began doing what I did, and it's just grown from there.
That is, wow, that's crazy. And that's quite sad, like having,
it is.
Somebody having to use their retirement money to help somebody else, but convinced to do that. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. The person took borrowing out to help someone, nice, and didn't even hold the person responsible. But it's the fact that she was forced into doing it, tricked by different wordplay into paying when she didn't need to do that. And then that's when I thought something has to be done about that.
What could she have done though? Differently?
No, but they are not supposed to do that to someone who's vulnerable. Okay. And she was a pensioner who was vulnerable.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you'll find out later on this podcast, this is why I'm so specific about when you communicate with creditors, debt collectors, etc., that you keep it in writing.
Okay.
Because when there's a phone conversation, you're not recording it. Okay. So that's why I won't even talk about names of companies or anything, because the fact of the matter is, the phone conversation, only one person records it if it's recorded.
Yeah.
Do you see? Yeah.
Man, okay, cool. Let's get into it. Let's get into it, right?
Yeah.
So describe to us at a high level how, borrowing works and who loses and who profits from it.
I like that. We start at the front page, the beginning of the book of money. Now, I work on facts, right? I don't talk about conspiracy theories or anything like that. So what I'm going to tell you, I'm going to kill off any conspiracy theories, any misassumptions, etc. Banks do not lend money. Now, let me make it clear. They don't earn, like you go out and earn money and you take it and you lend £100 to your friends. Banks. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So banks don't do that. So what they do is, if you want to borrow £10,000, the bank creates the £10,000. It's called new money, right? And when you pay off that £10,000, the £10,000 gets deleted off the system. It doesn't exist, but you're paying interest. So the interest is where the bank earns their money. But money gets created and erased as you pay off the debt.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and you want to know what's funny is because why I said to you, I'm going to kill off any conspiracy theories or any assumptions is, people will sit there and believe that banks lend money because it has to make sense. But do you know where this information is? This is when I said to you, start at the front page of the book. The Bank of England have it written clearly on their website.
Really?
Do you know who the Bank of England is? The Bank of England is a central bank of the United Kingdom. They tell you how borrowing works. They tell you that it's created as new money, and they tell you it's erased. And they tell you that banks do not lend the money. So if you want to question in order for it to make sense to you and to justify yourself when when you feel like a debt should be paid. And this is not saying to you about not paying debts or not. It's the fact that you have to understand money first before you play the game.
Yeah.
Because money's a game.
Okay.
But understand the game first. And the first page of this book is banks don't lend money. They create money. And as you pay, it gets deleted.
Okay.
They just make profit.
Okay. So they make profit from you obviously paying to them something that I guess they create out of thin air in a way.
That's it. It is
Okay.
created. Well, when you think about it,
Yeah,
you
money
already
is,
know
yeah,
it's created out of thin air.
Yeah. Money is created out of thin air in a way. Yeah.
This is the thing. But
Yeah.
human beings have to believe in money for this to work.
Yeah.
You see, so we're a unique species because we believe in things that aren't real. You see, if you're,
I love the way that you say that. That isn't real because it's true. We assign the value to this paper currency and whatnot,
Yeah.
right?
because we believe we can do something with it. You
Yeah.
see,
Okay.
if you go to the jungle and there's a lion about to jump on you, and you say, "I've got £100,000 to give you," that's not going to work on a lion.
For
He's
real.
not going to say, "Oh, do you know what? Actually, I'll take the 100,000."
Oh my god. Okay. Wow. That actually kind of blows my mind. So so banks create the money, right, to lend to you, to lend the created money to you, and then you pay. You say they delete it. I don't get that part. How does that work?
So
that whole deleting thing.
So you actually ask who's the winners and the losers. The loser is the person who actually works for the money. So when you go out and do a job and you pay, you are actually doing something for the money. The banks don't do anything for the money. They create it. And when I'm saying to you, so 10,000 is created and put into your bank account. Okay. As you're paying off that 10,000, the 10,000 is deleted from the financial system. It's clearly on the Bank of England website. If anyone was to question it, if you don't believe it, you can call out the Bank of England anytime that you want and ask them if that's the case.
That's crazy.
However, this is where it gets fun when I say to you about human beings believing in things that aren't real. Even the people working in the Bank of England won't know that because if you're part of the game, you have to believe whatever is in the game. If you know something different, then it will make you act differently.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
But that's exactly how it works.
Okay.
Banks don't lose. Banks win.
They're the house.
The house always wins.
Oh gosh. Okay. Yeah. All right. Cool. So let's talk a bit about that relationship, right? I guess you did kind of allude to it, right? The relationship between the lender and the borrower, which is obviously the lender is the person who creates it, and then the borrower. Is there anything else to that relationship, or is it just is it that?
That is basically a relationship.
Okay.
There's the borrower and the lender. Well, they call themselves a lender. The true word for it should be the creator of the, because they don't lend, of the facility.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And then the person who borrows the money is the one who has to work and do things in order to pay it back. It's good that you started there because it's so important for people to understand this in order to deal with the mental and emotional aspects of debt and the guilt, the feeling of, you know, that with the feelings we can discuss later.
Yeah.
So
it's a good point. You know what? Like when you say that is a good point because we do get emotions from it. But yeah, we're going to talk a bit about it. And actually on that note, right? So I was reading on, so the FCA posted this, right? So they said in January 2024, 7.4 million people were struggling to pay bills and credit repayments, and they note, so I noted down that this was actually slightly down from 10.9 million in January 2023, but it was still more than 5.8 million recorded in Feb 2020. And then they said, additionally, FCA found that over 5 million people said that they had fallen behind or missed paying one or more domestic bill or credit commitments in the previous 6 months from January 2024. So I guess up till June 2023, right, of last year. So having heard that, what do you think are like some of the common reasons why people get into debt and struggle to make their repayments?
Well, there's various reasons why people get into debt. The first thing, like I said, is about the mindset. Is people, when I speak to people, they have to understand that is not your money. So credit is not, you use it because it's there. But if it's not there, then you're only going to live to your means. It is almost like a carrot for you to put yourself in a situation. And there's several carrots. And so even a 0% credit card is a carrot, because the idea of the 0% is like, no, you don't have to pay interest. But it gets you down the mentality of using that as your money. And then when you can't pay it, then you start, then that's when they earn the real money. Yeah. So people have to be adaptable. Yeah. You need to know how to function earning 10,000 a month and function earning 1,000 a month. If you see a lot of people talk about making more money, but the fact is, if you earn 10 million a year and you spend 10 million and £1 a year, you have a financial problem.
Yeah.
Because you're spending more than you're earning. Do you see? And people are unable to adapt. So when things are changing, they're different, they find it difficult to change their spending behavior. Okay. And so they will find another way to deal with it. Yeah. And credit is a perfect way to deal with it. Other people do have situations where it could be, which are sad situations, because I speak to a lot of people, which it could be a medical situation, or it could be their situation where they're a family member or them. There's several reasons. Yeah. But the thing is, because it is there and the carrot is there, it will be used. Yeah. It's almost like an emergency fund that actually isn't an emergency fund, because they still want you to pay it back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the thing about credit cards, not just credit cards, just everything, I just think that you just get showered with a lot of opportunity to get yourself into debt in some way, right? Like you've got credit cards, you've got loans, now you got buy now, pay later, which you talked about. Yeah. You know, I don't know if people know, you know what, I'm not going to share my feelings too much on buy now, pay later. I'm not really a fan of it per se, but you've got all of these ways to, like you say, go over your means. And actually the 0% interest, you're absolutely, I get what you're saying on that, because you're almost like kind of delaying what you can't pay the thing now. Let's be real.
Exactly.
You can't pay, so you're delaying it. Like, you know, yeah, let's be real. And I've used 0%, so I can actually understand that line of thinking and thinking in that way. There's lots of reasons, and I think, you know, it's important for us to have these conversations so people understand. Because when I was and I think I've spoken about this story, like when I was at university and I got a overdraft, I didn't understand that was me getting into debt. I didn't have no financial education, so literacy, so I didn't have that education. How would I know? I just thought it was like, I guess I thought, yeah, okay, I understood the concepts of, okay, yeah, it was 0% interest free, whatever. I think I had £500. I think I understood that I could pay it back, but I think I got used to living in it, which most people do. They just live in it, right? Because it's like, oh, whatever. Like, you don't see it as that. So yeah, it's happened to me. It's happened to me a lot of times. So yeah, it's very, very interesting.
And many others, by the way, because you that, you know, when you're at that stage, when you're in uni or just getting into the financial system or the game, like I call it, you're almost like people fight to get you, because you're the next crop of people that can put into a situation. And for the whole of your, like, hopefully for as long as they can, 20 years, 25 years, they can, because you have to understand that banks, lending money, we'll call it lending money, is banks' business. That's how they make their money. Yeah. So they need newer customers. As the other ones grow older, whatever. That's why they target you, give you a little overdraft, get you ready. It's a bit shady.
It is a bit
you're
shady.
Picking up some young adults and going, come.
It is a bit shady.
Come into my van or my bank.
No, honestly, no, it is like it's mad. And I guess you could you know what? Like, let's actually talk about this. We'll talk about it, whether it's a good or bad debt later on. Yeah. But even I was just thinking, student loan, right? Okay, in this country, it's gotten worse for sure. During my time, I think it was you could pay it off within eventually you could pay it off, right? my time was the one where it was 3,000, and I know previously before that I think it was 1,000 and maybe 3 before that. Now students are having to pay $9,000 a year just for tuition. Let's say it's 3 years, that's 27 grand, not including, you know, getting like a loan for like maintenance and stuff like that. In America, it's way more.
Yeah.
Like there's I've heard that like student loan can be in the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
So you're already like by going to university, you're already on this debt cycle.
Yeah.
But you don't see it as that, but you kind of are. They'll take out your paycheck. But that's what it is, right? In a way, right? It's the same thing. Yeah.
To me, I think the student loan system, I think it works the way they want it to work. But the way it should work is it's an investment. When you work for a business, right, they will invest in your training and everything like that because you're going to produce the money. Yeah. Okay. And so if you don't, then they may want to claw it back. But when I'm saying it's an investment, because if you invest in students, they're going to pay you back in taxes. Yeah. The more educated that they are, the education is a separate thing, by the way. Another day. But the more educated that you are, the higher job you'll get, the more tax you'll pay. Yeah. So it's really an investment. And so, but it's almost like we're not going to invest, and it's in every single way. Yeah. Money can be extracted from you.
Yeah. Because we pay interest on top of the student loan.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. And I noticed for my one, it increased as inflation increased.
Of course.
So I was like, well, I think it was like, and I can't imagine what the current crop of students, because I know it was like, again, they've got this whole complicated system. Obviously, for the newer students, they have a different way of how they do their interest rates versus like my generation, for example. So I think mine went up to about, I think it was 6%. I think it was 6% interest rate. Yeah. So I can imagine theirs would be higher, which is crazy on that huge amount. So, okay, sorry, I'm not trying to get anybody sad about it, because we're going to talk about why I don't think you don't need to be. You can be, let's say, clinical about it, I think, but we'll talk a little bit about that. I don't want to get too excited. So, obviously, I guess, I wanted to talk about the impact, right? So what is the impact to someone's credit report if, they're unable to pay their credit repayments on time, or they're unable to pay their debt at all?
See, I like that question because there's two parts to it. The impact of the credit report, it depends on how you deal with the debt, which is why I'm so specific about how you manage a debt situation, because people find themselves in a worse situation than what they should be based on their actions, which I have article after article about telling you exactly what to do in a different situation, in each situation. So if you don't address it in the correct way, and you're not going to know how to address it, because again, this is the game. There's a rule book that you don't have, okay? Or you won't necessarily read it or understand it. The rule book is given to the lenders who have to sign up to it, okay? They have to agree, blah, 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 blah. And the rule book is designed in place to not crash the economic system, and also to keep the belief in strong. Because if the people don't believe in the monetary system, then it can collapse. Okay, so if, for example, it's handled correctly and you cannot pay your debts, you can default. Okay, but if you take certain actions or don't take certain actions or do certain things, you can end up in a worse situation. It depends. If, for example, with unsecured debts, which should not be any more than a default, if you're struggling, can end up being a CCJ, etc. Blah blah blah. But let me tell you, it is unnecessary for that to happen. Yeah. So, and also, the credit report is an obsession with people. Yeah. Okay. If you're struggling with debt, what you're protecting is the ability to get into more debt. Okay. So you already have a problem, but you're protecting the ability to have more of a problem. So what you have to understand is, when I speak to people and they say to me that they talked about their credit report, I tell them I don't think you're struggling, because if you were, you wouldn't be discussing that. Okay, but the key thing that they need to do is to make sure they limit the impact on the credit report. Yeah. If you're struggling, you need to be fed first. That's you cannot suffer. Your family can't suffer. Your children can't suffer. If there's a situation, you need to be fed first. You see, that's exactly my stance on it. Okay, so if you can't pay your debts, these are non-priority debts. They have a process in place, the Financial Conduct Authority, in order to deal with it, that will limit the impact, which means you only get a default. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
But obviously, other debts like mortgages and everything like
Yeah.
that, again, they have to be addressed in different ways because there's assets. A mortgage is a secure debt, and there's an asset attached to it,
Okay.
meaning that they can take the asset.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's various different outcomes that you have to understand.
Okay. So let's talk about. Let's start with unsecured debt, because I think let's say that's probably, I don't want to say it's more common, but let's talk about it, like the credit cards.
Oh, it is
the
more
loans.
common. You're right.
It is more common.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about that. Like, what kind of happens if someone is unable to pay their debt? How is that kind of treated? I want to kind of go down that rabbit hole.
Oh, cool. So basically, it's an automated system which triggers actions. It's a workflow. So if, for example, you were unable to pay and you didn't make the payment, then they trigger an action, which is phone calls, letters, etc. Now, it's interesting because it's a psychological thing. You see, so when you're getting phone calls, you're getting letters, etc., it prompts you to do something. You think you have to do something in order to stop it. So what happens is if you don't pay, if you can't pay, or you don't pay, then it starts a process. And with that process, what you have to remember is the lenders have to follow rules and guidance. Okay, so they have to treat you in a certain way. So I guess with your question as to what happens, I think what I will do is talk about what happens, but also actions as well. That what, like your situation, how it affects each action. So if you should always communicate. Don't not communicate, because when you're not communicating, it has a different workflow. So if you don't answer, you don't pay, then it allows them, as per the guidance and per the rules, it allows them to take a different pathway with you. Okay. If you're communicating and paying what is affordable, it's under section 7.3 of the Financial Conduct Authority Handbook. What it does, it means that they have to treat you with something called forbearance, which means they have to stop any normal legal action that they could take against you, in a nutshell.
Whoa.
Okay. Yes, but they're not going to tell you that. That's not their
Why
job to
would
tell
they
you.
tell you that though?
Why would they?
Yeah, why wouldn't they? Why not?
Because it's not their job to tell you.
Okay.
Because they're there to make money. They're not there to tell you. They're not there to tell you. For example, if you went and I don't know, if you went to a restaurant and you didn't like the food, you don't know what their process is. Whether they sit there and immediately give you a refund, whether they give you a voucher, you don't know their process.
True.
But their rules are in black and white, but you have to understand it. The Financial Conduct Authority Handbook is extensive and it has all their rules, etc. If you're a vulnerable person, and vulnerability is an interesting one because it could be anything. If you give any signal that you're anxious or you're stressed or there's certain circumstances that happened in your life, whatever, they have to treat you again in a different workflow, which is as a vulnerable person, which has to be with care, with due care and attention. Do you understand? So depending on what your situation is how they will treat you. But the most important thing that you have to take away from this is not to ignore the debt. You're already protected. You're protected by rules and guidance.
Okay. You know what? I appreciate you saying that, because I think there may be some people watching or listening to this episode that, might be in a situation where they have debt and they're struggling. Look, I understand the letter thing. I get it. You see that red letter, notice, open letters, you're getting missed calls, you're getting, voicemails. I understand how that can create anxiety. But instead of running away from it, I appreciate the fact that you said that actually by speaking to them head on, it makes it easier for you. And I think a lot of people don't know that or realize that. Going into the fire actually helps you out here.
It's true. They don't know that because let me put it this way. When you see red letters, you see certain wording. Wording is such a key thing. People who come to me, they panic. They go, I'm going to get a CCJ. And I ask them to read the letter to me. And they will say, if you don't make this payment, we have possible actions, which is this, county court judgment, blah, blah, blah. Please call us today so we can arrange a payment. Call us today. And so when they read the letter, again, they realize that they say we may take this action, we may do this. When they read the letter again, they start to understand that what is being said is not the case. You understand that these banks, these lenders, they're not allowed to state certain actions that they cannot do or will not do. So they can't say, we will take you to court. They can say, we may. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And there's a key difference between may and will. If you called me up and said, are you going out on Saturday? And I say to you, yeah, I'm going to be going out. That is definitive. But if I say I may do, right? That's not, you can't work with that. So what I'm saying to you, they're very clever in what they put in and the words that's put around it. So if they put may, you put may or things like that. It's and put the CC, like county court judgment, CCJ, it's to prompt action. Yeah. Do you understand? And also, you're never going to receive a letter from a lender saying, by the way, we don't actually lend money, we create money. But if you've got time, could you pay us? But don't worry if you can't, because that's not going to do anything. They have to send you something that's going to make you think it's serious, even if it isn't.
Yeah, because they want their money.
Of course.
Yeah, they want their money from you. Look, they want their money. But I'm glad that, and I hope this is hope for people watching and listening, that actually by communicating, it opens a door instead of running away and ignoring, hoping it's going to go away, you know? Like, how can people... Actually, let me reverse this question. When you have your clients coming to you, how do you kind of convince them to be like, okay, let's open this letter. Let's pick up this phone call and call them?
That's a good question. But I'm direct.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
And when they speak to me, it's they have the correspondence. But my thing is for them to understand the situation. Do you understand? So I explain the situation. So they will come to me. Some people will come and they'll say, I'm just scared that bailiffs are going to come to my house. And I talk them through the exact process from what needs to be done from you not paying your credit card all the way to bailiffs. So once you understand the full book, right? Once you understand it, then you start to realize that this is not going to happen. People, I don't know what it is, whether it's media or whatever. They create things. When you don't understand something, you will just create it. Your mind just creates whatever it wants.
Yeah.
And I'll say to them, so where'd you get that from? Now, so when they come, the main thing for me is they need to be calm about it. They need to understand that it's not a big thing and it is big for you. But if you have a £10,000 debt right now, it's a massive deal for you and you're going to be panicking, not losing sleep, whatever. But CEO of Barclays, he doesn't go in on a Monday and start asking, has Atto paid his credit card bill? The process is the whole way it works is based on computers and workflows, which is why they encourage you to call them. Human beings don't get involved in it. It's just a system of workflows. Now, when they open, I don't even need to convince them. I explain to them how things work. Yeah. When I explain to them how things work and what actions lead to certain consequences, that's what I want to do. And also the main goal for me is to understand how they're there in the first place, because dealing with the debt, like anyone watching this, dealing with unsecured debt is not hard. It is not the end of the world. It's not difficult. Okay. But how you got there in the first place is what you need to address.
Okay. And we're going to talk about that, breaking out of debt cycle, because I think that's quite important. Does this change if it's a mortgage? I want to kind of just mention it because I know some people's interest rates, I say some, my interest rate went up. So I know some people's interest rates for their mortgages have gone up. It's becoming unaffordable. So is it a similar thing if you're quite struggling with that? Is it like, we should speak to the banks?
100% you should, because they have to provide options. Basically, repossessing your house is the very last resort. They have guidance and rules as well that they have to follow, because what the country doesn't want is a whole lot of people with no houses. They have to follow a process to work with you and give you time with a lot of options in order for you to even get to that situation. And I find that a lot of people who may be struggling with a mortgage have unsecured debts as well, and their prioritization is incorrect.
Okay.
So this is actually a very good subject that you're speaking about, is to understand the difference between priority and non-priority debts. Now, unsecured debts, credit cards, loans, credit cards, loans, store cards, etc., they're non-priority debts. When the lender will ask you if you're up to date with your priority debts, because they know they're non-priority. If you're not up to date, they won't take money from you, because your priority debts are mortgage, utility bills, council tax. These are priority debts, food.
Yeah.
Okay, so a mortgage is a priority debt. So if you are trying to pay your credit card and your personal loans, and your mortgage is suffering, then you need to change that.
Yeah.
Immediately, because those are non-priority.
Okay. No, I appreciate you. I appreciate you actually categorizing that. And I'm glad that I asked you about the mortgage stuff, because because it being a priority makes sense. You got a roof over your head, right?
Exactly.
And, you don't want to lose that. But I'm also glad that actually having that conversation is important. I want to talk about actions, right, that a lender could take to try to get their money back, right? Let's go down the path where somebody's not responding. I'm interested in hearing that one. Yeah. What happens there?
Then everything is available.
Really?
So if you're not, this is the key, again, to understand the rules of the game. Read the full book, of the game. It's not an actual physical book, but you need to go through and understand everything. Now, if you are receiving letters from a lender or a debt collector, and they're sending you letters to your house, and you're tearing them up, putting them in the bin, etc. The way the UK works is, if a letter is sent and it's not returned within a reasonable period of time, you've received it. Simple as that.
Yeah.
I'm telling you this because it's important to know before I tell you the other part. So what the lender will do, or the debt collector, will continue to work down the workflow. They'll try to contact you. They'll try to speak to you. If you do speak to them and you don't pay them, or you show, like, some people are quite, they watch a lot of YouTube channels or whatever, and people have an idea based on, I don't know, there's different, what is it called, routes or different methods that they think that are actually not correct. They could be correct, but they don't work, okay? Because there's a system already in place. So if you decide to go down that route, they will look at it as a complaint. They'll go through a complaints process, and all they're doing is leading up to a situation where you have shown that you're not working with them and you're not making any payments. So when you've shown that you're not working with them or making any payments, that gives them the opportunity to take other actions, which is to go take legal action. So they issue a claim form. Now, when they issue a claim form, unless there is technicalities, real small technicalities, which you won't find because these are businesses who know what they're doing, you will lose. And then once you lose, then enforcement action happens. So the process is, when you're not paying, they can issue a claim form. You can defend it if you want to, but you'll end up losing, like 99% of the time. And then they can choose whether, if you've got a house, to put a charging order on your property, or they can choose to do an attachment of earnings, so they can take money from your money. They can send bailiffs round, etc. And that's all because, and I see a lot of this, and let me tell you, all because you didn't communicate and pay anything, what is affordable for you. See, that little action of communicating and paying even the smallest amount stops all that.
That's crazy.
But they're not going to tell you that.
Stops you from getting punished.
Exactly.
That's mad. Because that, to me, that is punishment, attaching to your earnings, legal action. Bailiffs is, I know everybody's terrified about the bailiffs, because that one is somebody at your door. Yeah, we're taking something here. And we're going to talk in more detail about bailiffs, because I know that is a real fear for people. That's sad, man. That's sad.
It's the reality.
Such a little thing as well.
I know the amount of people who come to me, and I look at that and I think that's an unsecured debt, which didn't need to go. You have an entire section in the Financial Conduct Authority handbook that they have to follow. I know you don't know it, but again, this is why I do what I do. I've broken it down to the most simple form and given step-by-step guide of how to do it, which obviously is not what the lenders and banks want. because
No,
it's
of
their
course
rules.
not.
But
Yeah.
I've shown this is what their rules are.
Mm.
And when you follow that, as soon as you follow the step by step, there's nothing they can do. They can default you, but they can't take further action.
Mm.
Do you see?
Mm.
And that's the information. Do you know when you came out of
Yeah.
uni or whatever, you were put into the middle page of the book.
Yeah.
They didn't you didn't start at the beginning, which you should have started, which is how does lending work first of all?
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, they don't even explain it to you.
No, they
which
don't.
They should, right?
No, they don't.
By the way, you know, if you're they're not gonna. They'll say they put in the terms and conditions or whatever. I don't know who reads that.
How about if a person doesn't even speak English, by the way? And which is,
Yeah,
they don't speak
That's
English.
true.
I've spoken to, they have a translator and they were in £10,000 worth of debt and they didn't even understand what was written. That's
This stuff
Fun
is
times.
crazy. Okay, so let's assume somebody does communicate. Let's go the positive angle. They do communicate. I guess what's the possible kind of things that would happen if they are communicating with the lender, debt collector, and stuff like that?
really good question. If you're communicating, and this is so key, I'm going to tell you now, that whatever you offer the lender or the debt collector, they cannot refuse it. They cannot refuse any token payments from you. They can't refuse it. And also, they are not allowed to suggest, and this is for unsecured debt. Let's make it clear. This is for unsecured debts. Don't confuse it with other debts. They cannot suggest any amounts for you to pay. They can't suggest it. What they will do, so obviously that can put the lender in an uncomfortable position. So they utilize an income and expenditure form. Because what happens is when you complete an income and expenditure form, there's your income, there's your expenditure, and you have £30 left at the bottom. What the lender will do is they'll suggest that £30 can be paid to them, but they won't tell you need to pay us £100. If they did, they have a big problem with the Financial Conduct Authority. They cannot suggest any amounts and they cannot refuse token payments. Section 7.3 of the Financial Conduct Authority Handbook, 7.3.5. They can't refuse any token payments.
Oh my god! I never
So-
knew that.
Yeah.
Wild.
So but what happens is, people come on the angle as the weaker side. But when you don't understand that someone in debt, you're in the stronger position because they have to go by rules and guidance that you're not aware of. Do you understand? But so they can't bully, if they cannot bully you, they can't make you do anything. That's why they will ask you if your non-priority debts are up to date.
Yeah.
Because if they're not up to date, they can't take money from you.
Mm.
They are not allowed to. If you say to them they're not up to date, they will suggest that you deal with that.
Okay.
And they'll revisit you in 6 months or 12 months or whatever.
Okay.
If your income and expenditure forms show 0,
Mm.
they can take 0 from you.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Oh my.
That's why it's
I did not
nothing
know
to be
that.
worried about or to
Yeah.
fear.
Mm.
You only fear what you don't know.
Yeah.
You fear the unknown.
Yeah.
But when you understand how things work,
Mm.
then there's nothing to fear.
I did not know that. That is crazy. Wow, my mind has been blown. Like a few times since the beginning of this conversation, it's been crazy. Okay, so is there any other protection that borrowers have when they borrow money from a lender? So that seems to be like one. If they communicate, they can suggest the amount. It's not the lender. Is there any like other protections that you know of that a borrower has?
Well, the Financial Conduct Authority are about treating customers fairly. Okay, so they have to. If, like I said, if you're vulnerable, they have to conduct themselves and treat you in a certain way.
Yeah.
You're protected in that way. You're protected in terms of, I guess it depends on the debt. For example, if it's a different type of debt, there are always options. They have to explore all options, and the worst possible options is always the last resort. So understand, it's always the last resort.
Yeah.
And for you to get there means that you are not doing anything.
Mm.
But you are protected in the way they conduct themselves, the way they behave, which is why even debt collectors, they can be quite polite in their letters. This didn't used to happen before. Debt collectors, they used to issue statutory demands like confetti. That's what they used to do. They used to just issue, and a statutory demand, by the way, if people don't understand,
Mm.
it's for you to be bankrupt.
Yeah.
And that was a big problem at the time it was a Financial Services Authority, FSA it was, and that's why things had to change. Now they have to conduct that you're protected in the way they behave. If there's anything that they do that you're not happy with, you can complain about it, and they have to deal with the complaint. And if you're not happy with the complaint, you can take it to Financial Conduct Authority. And what you'll find, just a little fun thing for you to know, just interesting, is any financial business that is under the Financial Conduct Authority, they allow 25 complaints a year, okay, free of charge. Any complaint from the 26, they get charged about £550 per complaint, whether it's right or wrong.
Wow.
So what they do is they try to deal with it there and then, and somebody just give you £50 because they're saving 500. Do you see?
Yeah.
And so you have so much protection by the Financial Conduct Authority in the way they conduct themselves, in how they treat you, how you are protected.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. Appreciate that.
And
Thank
with
you.
options as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's talk about this bailiff stuff, right? Is it, when they come around your house, actually, no, let me ask this question. How does it get to that stage of bailiff coming around your house, literally trying to sell stuff, like take stuff to sell? How does that actually happen? Like, how do we get to the stage where it's that deep?
Well, these are businesses.
Yeah.
So remember, these are actual businesses. So let's say you aren't making any payments and they decide that they want to go all the way, take legal action, etc. Debt collectors are the ones who are more likely to do it, by the way, because we'll talk about debt collectors and buying debt later, but they are more likely to do it. But normally what they have to do is take a commercial decision, because bailiffs cost money, court action costs money, and the way bailiffs works is they can go to your property, but they can't enter your property unless peacefully. So you have to allow them in. They can't enter if someone's vulnerable and someone who is a minor. They can't enter. Okay? So bailiffs are not really a popular method for people because there is no guarantee that you get back anything, because there's a lot of technicalities in terms of what items yours, etc., etc. To get to that stage means that they really have felt that I guess they've thought this is a route that they want to take with you. They don't do it with everyone. They can just issue a CCJ and leave it. Most people want to get a charging order on the property, because then you change an unsecured debt to a secured debt, which means they get the money regardless as soon as you sell your property. But
is that what a charging order is?
That's what a charging order. So the way the charging order works is moving away slightly from bailiffs, which I'll return to, is they secure the debt to your property. So let's say your mortgage is 100,000, your house is worth 200,000, and the debt is 10,000. So your mortgage essentially in your mind is now 110,000. So when you sell your property, you have to pay your 100,000 to the mortgage company and 10,000 to whoever owns the secured debt, which means they've secured their money. Yeah. But there's something called an order for sale, which is forcing sale of your property. Okay. That is like less than 1%. The judges don't really grant that unless it's exceptional.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. And you said you wanted to come back to bailiffs.
So yes. So we'll come back to bailiffs. Bailiffs, they are limited in their rules, in what they can do. Yeah. Unless it's criminal or it's a governmental debt, then they can force entry. But for you to get to that stage means that you have just not cooperated. You've not paid it. You've not even answering. You just zero cooperation. Yeah, zero. And that's what I mean. It opens up the door.
Yeah. And this is why it's important to communicate. And I'm glad I'm hoping watchers and listeners communicate, tell your friends and family, anybody you know who's in this situation, just communicate. Be scared, but still do it. I'm not even going to say don't be scared. Be scared, but do it. Right?
It's understandable to be scared, but when you're communicating, you don't. But can I just add, so important is to communicate in writing. Don't be tempted to call, because you have no record of anything that's been agreed, which includes if you settle the debt, if you don't have written proof, someone... you're just going based on a conversation that they may or may not have recorded. Yeah. So always in writing via email or letter.
Okay, cool. Is it this whole selling of asset stuff, what's that about? Is that legal? That's
a fun subject.
Yeah, because okay, this is crazy hypothetical, but let's say somebody came to my, actually, you know what, I'm gonna actually describe this situation. So a letter came to my house for I didn't open it, but I could tell that there was it was like some kind of warning letter. I could just tell, right? Because it just kept on coming to my house, and it's not somebody I knew. They clearly just used my address for it. And I think it was something like, oh, bailiffs are gonna come or something mad like that. And I was like, this is crazy. So I opened it. I don't know how I could tell. I opened it, and then I think I got details that it's bailiffs. It's for like a parking ticket or something like that. So I called the company and said, oh, this person doesn't live here. But let's say I didn't even bother. I was just like, whatever, somebody else would come and collect it. And bailiffs turned up to my house, right? On that.
The bailiffs can only go to they can only speak to the person or to the person who is listed on the letter or the debt. Yeah. They can't take your stuff.
Okay.
But in terms of buying and selling debt, that's a really good one, because this will change a lot of mindsets of people, which it did when I created content on it about it, is the fact you have to understand debt buying. Right? Debt buying is a multi-billion-dollar business.
Is it?
Yes, it is. And what happens is, that's why I'm glad you started at the first question you asked was important. Remember, banks do not lend money. They just create money. Now, so when, let's say your debt, a person's debt is £10,000, right? What the bank will do, for example, if you're not paying it, or if you're paying token payments towards it, whatever, they may choose to sell the debt. Now, they sell it as part of a portfolio. It could be £100 million portfolio worth of debt. Remember, I said worth of debt. And the debt collector pays between 3 to 10p in a pound for those debts. Okay, so so now you know that. What they do is they pay 3 to 10p in a pound, and they demand the full value of the debt. Now, it's going to be a fun game to work out the profit margin there. Do you see? So they are legally allowed to buy it. So anyone who has the belief it's not legal or whatever, trust me when I say to you, you can't win this argument. If you believe it's illegal, then you just call the police. Do you understand? Yeah. But I'm telling you, it is a multi-billion-dollar business and this is what they do, and they're allowed to do it. Yeah. But the key thing about it is how much they pay for the debt. The reason why I'm telling you how much it is because you really shouldn't pay the full value of a debt. When you understand how much profit they make, you'll find that they will give you offers for the debt. They may reduce it by 50%.
Really?
Of course. 50%, 60%, 70%.
That's crazy.
80%, 90%. Do you see? One person that I helped with their debt, I reduced his debt from £100,000 to £5,000.
No way.
I promise you, to £5,000. Because you have to, again, banks create money. Okay. They don't lend money. Secondly, debt collectors pay between 3 to 10p in a pound for the debt.
So 3 to 10p of every pound.
Yes.
That's what they're paying for the debt.
Exactly. 3 to 10% of the debt. And then they demand the full. So if you've got a business where you do that, even if they got 50% of the debt, the profit margin is ridiculous.
That's crazy. And then obviously the banks sell it because it's just profit anyway.
Of course.
We sold this to you. We made money anyway. Of course. We just created it. So we can sell it to you cheaper.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's crazy.
That's how people don't lose money in this industry. And the people who buy it, your debt could be owned by a random investment company like PRA Group, which some PRA Group is an American company. They can buy these debts here, and it's part of a massive. They're global debt buyers, so they just buy debts all over the place. That's what they do.
Seriously? So what? So a private company can actually just buy people's debt?
Yes, PRA Group. I think PRA Group may be a PLC, but they are private companies. Wow. Yeah. They will just buy these debts across the world.
That's mad.
Yeah. So your debt could be owned by an American company.
Wow. That's quite crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, thinking about that, like you never actually think that that's the case and that there's a business behind it and it works in that kind of way. But explaining this, I think it should put people at ease a little bit.
For me, it shouldn't stress you. It shouldn't. the whole thing is a game. Okay, even the financial system is a game. All of us play a part in the game. If you're involved in money, if you earn money, you're part of a game, but you just have a role. You see, and I think that's where people struggle with. Even debt is not something that ever bothers me at all, because you have to understand that it is, the whole thing is a game. I can sit here now, okay, and I can leave here. Someone will drive me home, do effort. I can get an Uber. Someone's going to drive me home, do all that effort, and I'm going to give him notes. I'm not exchanging the same effort at all. Do you see?
Yeah.
So it's, the whole thing is not something for you to like stress about. It's something for you to understand and be calm with. So even when you understand how the process of debt works, then you will. I see people try to do everything they can to clear a debt that's already defaulted. I think we'll talk about default later.
Yeah.
That is a very interesting topic because it's how you're wasting money or wasting your time, where it should be used to grow you.
Yeah. Wow. Honestly, this is crazy. This is crazy. So I think you really wanted to speak about this. We spoke about this, right? So you mentioned to me that some people believe that they are exempt from paying off their debt because their debt has been bought.
Yeah.
Right. Let's demystify that.
Yeah. I you know what it is? Let me tell you. I respect anyone's opinion, whatever, but I'm going to tell you what will really happen. It doesn't matter whether it's true or not. Okay, whether they paid the debt or whatever, is a fact that what will actually stand up in court. That's what you have to decide. So, for example, if you decide, if a debt collector buys a debt, you no longer have to pay for the debt because they've cleared your debt for you, whatever. The debt collector will go through, and you tell that to the debt collector, he'll go through a complaints procedure. And then they will give you a final response and tell you why it doesn't stand up. Then when you still do it going down the same route, they will take you to court. Yeah? They will issue you a claim form and they'll take you to court. And you may think that, this is the angle I'm going to go down in court because I've read this on the internet, that once a debt collector or bills of exchange, I don't know, there's different types of theories, right? Again, I'm not criticizing it. I'm saying it doesn't stand up, because I could do this. If I go to court now and I was representing the bank, it's just too easy. The lawyer is just going to sit there and print off your transactions. And they're going to show you every transaction to show that you benefited from the money. Then they're going to explain the rules to the judge, which the judge is already going to know the rules in terms of how money works, just the public general rules, right? And so they'll ask, did you spend the money? You can't lie and say, yeah, I did spend the money. Then they go, is this your agreement? Yeah, I signed that agreement. And then the way to finish you off is they'll ask the judge, they'll say, do you have a credit card? Have you ever had a loan? And they'll go, yeah, I've had a credit card or I've had a loan. And they'll ask, did you pay your credit card or did you pay your loan? And the judge will say, yeah, I paid my credit card on loan, because they wouldn't be judges if they didn't. And so the lawyer will then say, so why does this person think he doesn't have to do it? Why does he think he's superior? And that's what I'm saying. So these theories, you don't need these theories. You actually have set rules by the governing body of all these financial institutions. So and I'll be honest with you, Atto, I have gone through all of these theories. There was one time when I thought, these could be correct, this could be correct. But then when I take a moment to think, it doesn't matter whether it's correct or not. It's the fact that it doesn't hold up. They're not going to change your system for you. They're not going to go, you've got us.
You've got us.
There we go. Case dismissed.
It happened. Okay, so I want to talk about the situation of bankruptcy, because you see a lot of it in the news, or this person's bankrupt, this bankrupt. I know it's another thing that people are fearing, right? But if someone's bankrupt, what does that actually mean? I'm trying to get an understanding of that, because we're talking about unsecured debts, right? Okay, if you speak to your lender, you can potentially pay, right? And actually, if you don't, they could do all of these kind of orders, bailiffs and stuff like that. So the bankruptcy, where does that play in all of this?
Oh, I guess if you're trying to understand more about bankruptcy, first thing, I do not ever recommend that you make yourself bankrupt. Okay. I don't recommend. I understand the psychological part of debt. It can cause you an issue, and you think bankruptcy is the way out. Okay, I get that, but bankruptcy affects you in so many ways, and for a very long period of time, and restricts you massively. Basically, when you make yourself bankrupt, it means you're incapable. It's insolvency. You're incapable of managing your own finances. That's what you're saying. Completely incapable. So, if you're bankrupt, your bank accounts, everything that you have is managed by someone else. Okay, so it's managed.
Seriously?
So your bank
my
accounts,
God.
etc. And also, you have to
That's
declare that you're
madness.
bankrupt to other people. When you want to do business, you can't take any actions. For example, if you're director of a business, you have to tell people that you've been made bankrupt. If you're a manager, you may not be able to manage your company. There are certain things that you have to ask the judge permission before you do it. You're heavily restricted. So bankruptcy whenever anything seems like a great way out, understand there is always a dark side to it.
Yeah.
For you to be, if you are bankruptcy potential, you don't need to do it yourself. Someone will bankrupt you. Do you see what I mean? And in terms of bankruptcy, people do make themselves bankrupt. But and I'm talking super rich people, right?
Yeah.
But they only make themselves bankrupt when it financially benefits themselves.
Yeah.
They don't make themselves bankrupt to their own detriment. Do you see? And so with bankruptcy, when it comes to unsecured debt, for you to be made bankrupt, if I'm honest with you, I'm saying this is 0.01% chance.
Yeah.
Because it's just not an attractive. The lender, the debt collector has to pay what, £1,600 to make someone bankrupt that they don't know, have any idea about their assets.
Yeah.
So they just throw £1,600 for absolutely nothing.
That's crazy. Okay, so it's a situation that shouldn't really.
You shouldn't think about it.
It shouldn't really be happening. Yeah, because we see this in the new. To be fair, we don't see it that often anymore, but you see it. You see it more with celebrities. Oh, this person's bankrupt, and there's all this negativity around it, and it does make me wonder, like, how does somebody get to that situation?
The media do a great job, don't they? Yeah, create that stigma.
Yeah, they do. No, they do.
It's sensationalist journalism, isn't it? Like, he's bankrupt. He's oh no, you don't want to be bankrupt.
Yeah.
No. Like,
honestly,
like
that is what it is. Yeah.
Oh, that person's in this amount of debt.
Yeah.
Oh no. It's
oh my God, that's crazy. Okay, so let's talk about the feeling towards debt, right? Why do you think people feel negatively about, debt, loans, credit cards, and things like that?
It's a funny one because no one, I guess, they don't feel that way about a property because, and I thought a lot about this as I speak to people, and I think people always like to talk about the wins. Do you see? Yeah. And even like traders, if they have a channel or whatever, they kind of talk about the wins. They don't really talk about losses. They may now and again to give a little bit of sensationalist content, but they will always talk about the wins. And a mortgage, you have a property and there's a potential to make a lot of money. So even if you've got £100,000 mortgage and it's worth 200,000, that is almost like that debt doesn't matter. But I guess people don't like to feel like that they don't want to, they almost see everyone else as doing okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what they don't realize, not everyone else is doing okay. Do you see? And
100.
Yes. And exactly. And they find it difficult, and the stigma attached to it when everything negative is written about people in debt. They go, now she's in debt, now he's in debt. It's such a negative connotation that I think people they feel if they have to talk about it, it's like a failure. Some is cultural, by the way. Some people, they almost have to show it's almost like either a masculine thing or ego thing. They have to show that they're always doing well, and it's competition with other people. So they don't want to show that they're doing that because it's almost like you're shunned. You're like, oh, look how great he is, but look how great he or she is, and look what he or she is doing. It's such a stigma attached to debt. But what I think is absolutely funny is you'll see people post brand new cars on Instagram. Brand new. I've got this car. But what they don't do is they don't sit and go, yeah, so basically I have car finance of this amount and I don't own the car. And if I don't make these payments, I'm going to lose this car.
Yeah.
But they don't post that. Do you see?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is because they don't like the stigma attached to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people's problem is, especially when you see other people you think are doing well.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think there should be a stigma to it? I don't think necessarily there should be a stigma to it. I don't think you should feel bad about being in debt, as long as you know what you're doing and you are conscious of what you're doing, and you're not getting yourself to a place where it's like not maintainable for you. Do you get what I mean when I'm saying that?
Yeah, but the stigma, the feeling only comes when they're struggling.
Yeah,
that's what happens.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
But the thing is, and I guess it's very easy for me to sit there and say, "Oh no, you shouldn't feel that about." But everyone has their own feeling. It's almost like it could be a pride thing. It could be anything. But the truth is, I speak to a lot of people, and I can tell you that people that you think who have a lot are in a good position, they're not. But even on Instagram and everything like that, I mean, I don't want to, people say it all the time, but I'm just kind of repeating. No one posts negativity on Instagram, generally, unless it gives them a benefit. No one sits in and goes, "Oh yeah, still can't pay my credit card." Still can't. They don't do that. Do you see? It's not the done thing. But it's very hard for people. My thing is, I understand how you feel about debt, but it is not the end of the world, and you have to learn from it. And the main thing is understanding what to do about it. Yeah. Once you know what to do about it, then it can kind of relieve the pressure, because it leads, when you're in debt, struggling, it kind of leads. It's a lonely place for people. Yeah. And that's what worries me. Is because then they take actions that they shouldn't, like IVAs.
Yeah, I agree. What is the best way then, I guess, for people to deal with their feelings? Let me not say what is the best way. What can people do? What are some options that people can do to deal with those, like maybe, let's say, those negative feelings towards debt?
To understand, find the solutions and understand how it works. It's very easy for me to say, speak to a partner. I think you should always speak to your partner about it, okay? But I understand you may not want to speak to a family member or this, that, and the other. Yeah. But what I think you should do is, you should not be, when you feel you're getting into a situation, you should not be afraid to say no. Do you understand? What I mean by that is, I've actually got an article about a spend circle. What it is people put themselves in a spend circle, where a circle of friends who spend a certain amount. You know, when they're around the same amount of earnings and they spend the same amount, right? But if you're in a spend circle which is above what you can cope with, it's going to lead you to a problem. Do you see? And so you almost have to, how can I put it? You almost have to position yourself in a situation, or be honest with people and sit there and go, no, I can't do that. Or I can't afford this. I can't do this. Or be honest. You don't have to say you're in debt, but you have to sit and go, I'm saving up, or I'm budgeting for something else, whatever, to remove yourself from a situation. Because I know people aren't necessarily going to say that. But I think it's always important to have someone close, even if it's your parent or your partner. I think having someone to speak to about it, because if you're alone with it, it can eat you up and can make you make drastic actions
100%.
that don't help you. And I find that's a lot.
Yeah. You know, so crazy. I love the fact that you said spend circle. I've never ever thought about it, but that is mad. You know what's so crazy sometimes about the spend circle? The spend circle, you might all be struggling. You're not all talking. You're not all talking.
No one's talking about it.
You're all spending out, you're all popping bottles, but secretly, man, I mean, 10K debt by doing this. You all think it's like, and it leads on to my next question. You're all kind of trying to keep up with each other, not knowing that you're all struggling. That happens. I see it all the time, right? So, you know, and it relates to my next question, which was, you know, talking about our egos and how that kind of promotes this kind of debt cycle that, you know, kind of really can put us into a significant debt. And you kind of mentioned it, the expensive car stuff, right? If you have a friend, you go onto Instagram right now and you go and see, I'm not talking about you personally, but I'm just talking about generally. You go on there, you see that they've got this brand new Mercedes. You don't know how much debt they put themselves in, if they can even, if they're not even eating good, or they're not living good just to pay that. And then it makes you feel, oh man, I need to go and get into it. And then it's just kind of repeated. How does our ego like contribute to this kind of stuff?
Let me tell you something. You know, touching on the spend circle and people's behavior, I have a lot of friends who have various varying wealth. I mean, millions, but they know what I'm like. You almost have to be focused in the way that you are. And they, like my friend doesn't, when he buys a new car, whatever, this, that, and the other, because he has quite a few cars, a lot of cars, I'll be honest with you. He doesn't want to tell me because I will lecture him about buying a car. Lecture him. Because
why are you buying that? You should be buying property, blah, blah, blah.
But the thing is, because I am straight up about how I am. And you almost have to dominate, be straight and honest from the start about how you are. Do you see what I mean? I forgot your question. Say that again.
No, it was about the ego. So how do we let the ego get us into, like basically promoting this debt lifestyle, which leads many people into serious amounts of debt and into a debt cycle?
You have to be strong-minded, because consumerism is like the adverts, consumerism, keeping up with the Joneses. It's very difficult, especially in the UK, because people will even justify it and say, if I'm driving this car, I'll attract more money. Do you understand? Or it's quite a materialistic setup in the UK, and it's very difficult to not be caught up in it. You almost have to be very strong-minded to be focused on what you want and believe what you want. And by the way, if you want to get to spoil yourself, right, to get yourself a nice car, whatever, you can do, but don't work for it. What I mean by that is create an investment strategy that something else pays for it. Do you see? Don't be the one to work for it. Buying like a brand new Mercedes, this, that, and the other, for me is a bad investment. Okay, whether you borrow the money for it, or whether you pay for it cash. For me, both sides of it, I'm not really a big fan of it. But I understand it's very difficult to try and say to someone, don't get this car, or don't get this brand new car, whatever. But at least, like, I had a process when I was younger that I would invest and then treat myself.
Okay.
Invest, then treat myself with the investment money. So at least I'm not working for it, and at least I have something to show for it. Because you'll find that people will get to a certain age of 40 years old and they'll go, I used to drive that car, and I used to drive this car, and they have no house, no anything. And they'll go, but you don't want to be a used to person. You see, you want to be able to say, this is what I've achieved by everything that I've done. So you almost have to find a way to deal with that. If you can't, then at least have a strategy that you're, okay, I've put this aside, this is my reward. Do you see? Because it's very hard to tell people not to do it.
We can't say people not to do it. I like the fact that you're saying, like, have a strategy around it. I think that's the most important, right? Have a strategy. It should be something that's sustainable for you. A lot of people, it's not sustainable.
Exactly.
It's not sustainable. Let's be real. Like, this is why they get into the situation where they're like struggling and they're getting into tens of thousands of pounds of debt. Again, I'm not saying this to say you should be embarrassed about it. I think I'm saying it more from the practical point of view where it's just unaffordable for you to pay back. You may never pay it back, right? Like, why would you want to be in a situation like that? From that perspective, not to feel bad about it. So yeah, it is very interesting. And yeah, consumerism is all around us. It's going to get worse. Like, I get emails every day. You know what's crazy, right? You'll shop somewhere and you'll just sign up to their mailing list. Like, they just pump in offers. And Black Friday is going to be mad. I know it's coming. Is it this week or next week? I think it's this week. It's coming up at some point. That will be mad as usual. And, you know, some of us come to it. So, I want to talk about this, right? I think this is important. The pressure to spend money and impress other people.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, because that's important. And I think it's harder because of social media. Social media is a crazy, I think in the next few years, maybe 5-10 years, they're probably doing studies on it. And I know that there's people talk about it. There's been positives. I like social media. I think there's lots of positives about it. But there are also negatives to it, and how I think it's obviously shaping society. You know, I mean, you can even kind of see it, like, in terms of even election, like how even with social media, the election, everybody was kind of talking about it. Like, I don't think I ever remember a time where people were so interested in just politics. It's just been getting very mad. But yeah, like that societal pressure to impress others, right? How can people kind of navigate that?
Well, I guess you have to work out. So if you need to spend money to impress someone, they're impressed with your money. They're not impressed with you. Take away your money and let's see what's left. But the thing is, because again, this goes back to human beings are, us human beings, we're like, we're a very unique species because we almost forget nature.
Yeah.
So basically, it doesn't, if you put two people, two guys or two women next to each other, right? Like, it's no longer like the strongest, the fittest, the whatever, the healthiest or whatever. It's money. Like human beings would, because I told you, it's the belief. It's the belief that they believe in something that's not real. We do. So we believe that the more of this that you have, that's how important it is. And it's very difficult because you have to almost block out the noise. You have to be strong-minded yourself. So to deal with this societal pressure, you're never going to get away from it because it is pumped. The reason why the credit system has been created is back before, if you wanted a brand new BMW, you have to save up £60,000, for example. And £60,000 now, they'll go, you don't need to save up £60,000. Here. Now anyone can have a BMW because it's encouraged spend. Yeah. But it's so difficult, but you have to be strong-minded. You almost have to dominate you have to dominate your surrounding in terms of that you have to make yourself above it. You have to think about what your transactions are. If you want to get a £60,000 BMW, save up £60,000, see how long it takes you to save it up. Once you've saved it up, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, whatever, take that and then see how you feel about giving all of your 3 years work.
I feel like I don't know if I could do that.
That's the point.
I don't know if I could do that.
But we don't have to think about that.
Yeah.
Because we could break it down into small payments. But you have to, media or TV, all of this, Instagram, all of that. People are becoming more and more wise, to be honest with you. Whether they're reacting to it, i.e. like I'm focused on investment. Thankfully, there's a lot of people who are focused on investing. Yeah. Whether they're wise to it, they're getting more wise to it, but whether they're acting on it is a difficult thing. I think you almost have to create your own algorithm that takes you away from, a mental algorithm that takes you away from the temptations. Do you see?
Yeah.
That's it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Very difficult, but you have to be strong-minded.
Yeah. What do you think about the whole good debt versus bad debt? I guess what's your honest thoughts on that?
Well, good debt is a debt that is understanding assets and liability. Yeah. Good debt is a debt that makes you money. Oh, by the way, I'm not against borrowing at all.
Yeah,
I'm
all for that's it how I want to talk about it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but I only want to make money on it. Why? Okay. I would leverage. Why would I not use someone else's money to make to use money that's been created out of nothing? But it has to make me money.
Yeah,
and also it's part of the game. In order to win the game, what you need to be able to do is be in a situation where money just gets generated for you and you're not working for it, or you're only doing things that you enjoy doing. Do you see? Because if you are having to work 9 to 5, 7 days a week, hate what you're doing, whatever, you are pawn in the game, right? So what the main thing that you need to find and to work out is how you get yourself into a situation where the money that is infinite just multiplies and makes you money, so you don't have to do anything. So with debt, good debt is debt that actually makes you money. Bad debt is something that costs you. So if you've got £10,000 credit card and you're working 5 days a week to pay it off, that's bad debt. Good debt, even a mortgage, a property is a liability unless it's making you money. Anything that costs you is making you money, but there's a potential for you to profit massively.
Yeah,
that's why people can class it as a good debt. But the best option would have been before, until rules change, would to have two properties: one that you rent and the one that pays your mortgage. Do you see? That was the best setup. But any debt that is making you money, if you want to borrow 10,000, it's going to make you 20,000. I'm all for it. But if you're going to borrow 10,000 and spend it in shops here, this and the other, and pay for it, I'm not for that.
Yeah. So how can you use the, leverage the debt system then to benefit you versus, against you?
Well, it's about why you borrow the money. So when you're borrowing the money, you have to have an idea to make, to profit on the money that you borrow and then give it back. Do you see? So you have to profit from it. Yeah. What you can't do is what you shouldn't do, shall I say, is to borrow the money and it costs you, especially time, because time you don't get back.
Yeah.
So you almost have to always have a specific reason, and don't get tempted to think this is money that is available to you.
Yeah.
It's money that you should only borrow to make money. Mortgages, for me, like I said, mortgages are fine, but understand that while you're paying a mortgage, it is costing you. But if it's going to make you, I don't know, £200,000 or whatever, then I think that's good.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay. So I want to talk about, helping people to get out of a debt cycle. I guess, what are the steps that someone can take today to work towards getting themselves, out of debt?
First things first is to understand what's priority and what's a non-priority debt. I know there are a lot of people whose focus is on paying off debt, and they'll say, I paid off my debt in 2 years. Understand that I don't want to, I want to think about what I say before I say it, because some people psychologically, they have to do that. And I understand that. But do understand what is the priority first. And if you're struggling, do not put yourself in a situation where you are practically killing yourself to pay off a debt because you think it's going to help you mentally, because you have other debts. Your phone bill's a debt. You see, so if you can't mentally deal with, understand or cope with debt, then your life is going to be very difficult. But the first step is to understand which is non-priority, which is priority, and make sure your priority ones are looked after.
Yeah. Okay.
Whatever you can afford for the unsecured debts, pay what you can afford. Yeah. If you have the mindset that you want to keep your credit, at some point you'll have a problem if you don't have enough to pay. It's inevitable. Okay. Once you have worked out which your debts are, understand exactly how to tackle each one. Don't panic. Don't rush. Take your time, because when you're in trouble, there's a sea of sharks around in order to take you down a path.
Yeah. So
take your time. Do a budget planner. I have a budget planner on my website, actually. Go through your budget planner. See exactly what you have left.
Yeah.
What you have left. Understand that you only pay what you can afford. In terms of your credit rating, you have to sit there and decide whether you want to suffer financially or whether you want to lose the ability to borrow more money. Talking about the credit rating, any negative, a default stays in your credit file for 6 years. And then after 6 years, the debt doesn't even exist on your credit file. It comes off. Okay. In terms of if you want to borrow money, etc., again, I'm not a big fan, depending on how you borrow money. The bank's business is lending money. So they're always going to want to try and lend you money. I've dealt with someone who defaulted, and 3 months later, they're trying to lend him more money.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
That's so mad.
So don't panic. Don't stress about it. Don't ignore any letters. Don't ignore any letters. Don't ignore any. Make sure you're communicating. Once you're communicating and you're paying what is as affordable for you, you'll be protected. Okay. But the thing is, don't start. There's a lot on the internet. Don't start going crazy with reading too much, reading horror stories, because these forums, the forums are littered with people who want you to go down the path.
Yeah.
Bank lenders, debt collectors, insolvency practitioners, they will tell you what benefits them. You see, so you have to almost block out the noise, understand the rules.
Yeah.
Which I base it on section 7.3 of the Financial Conduct Authority Handbook. Follow the process, but don't stress. Don't beat yourself up, and don't don't suffer in silence.
Yeah. Okay. I appreciate that. I really, really love that. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much, Oyeda. It's been an amazing conversation. I'm thinking, right, like, I want to end it on this question, right? So for those people that have never gotten a credit card or loan, what are the pitfalls they should look out for to prevent them from getting themselves into serious debt? So these are for newbies if never.
Oh, that's such a good question.
Yeah.
You know? I'll tell you why. Because you can't do much without credit, having a credit card or some form of borrowing. That's how they determine whether you want. It's almost like you don't need to get a credit card, but if you want to go into the property ladder or whatever, they go, but you've got no history of borrowing, but you don't need to get it. But it's almost like that you have to at some point get onto that ladder. Okay. Now, what you have to understand what happens if things go wrong, and understand how to utilize a credit card. So the way to use a credit card is you should only use credit that you have. So for example, if you're going to spend 300 on your credit card, as soon as you get home, transfer the 300 and clear that debt. Don't wait for your bill or whatever, because as you start waiting, things build up. So see the credit card as not an extension, not your money, as a facility for you to pay things based on what you have. But whatever you do, do not use it as an extension of your income or your money, because it's not. And it's easy to fall down that route because you think, I'll get a bonus and I'll pay it all off. But use it, pay it off. Use it the minute you get home, pay it. You see, because it helps build up your credit rating, but don't fall into the trap, which is what it's designed for, to start spending more, and then you start paying off minimum payments, because that starts you getting off worse. So it starts the downward spiral, because then you get more borrowing. And don't take out more borrowing that you need. Don't be tempted. They want to increase your credit rating or whatever because they want to encourage you to get into more debt. So that's what I would recommend to anyone getting into the financial system and into borrowing, is to understand that it's not your money. And read the book from the third page, which is Banks Don't Lend Money, and know what your options are and what to do if you ever get into trouble. Because I can tell people this, but people are still going to get into trouble. But know what your options are. Don't panic, don't ignore. Just know that the system is set up to look after you, because you have to believe in the system.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So talk to us about that. Is that Real Debt Guy, right?
Yeah, the Real Debt Guy.
Okay, the Real Debt Guy.
www.therealdebtguy.com.
So how do you help people? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes.
Yeah, where people can find you as well.
Yes. I have, you can find me on my website. I have so many articles that will explain that. I have one side that deals with the mindset and emotional aspect of debt. I have solutions. So I give you options and solutions. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to give you the correct information broken down. I just simplify it. So you have different options as to what to do. But the key thing about the articles and the guides, everything that I write, is my thoughts at the end. Because I'm not here, I don't want to, you have the whole world trying to tell you what to do. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to give you the facts. And so at the bottom, I'll give my opinion. So it's fact-based opinion content. So if you are struggling with your credit cards, store cards, etc., I have an entire section for that will tell you exactly what your options are. The token payment method, which basically allows you to pay what is affordable, detailed as a guide, how to deal with debt collectors. I also have templates for you to use. So it is a hub to help people. If you want to speak to me, I'm a firm believer of time. Okay, so I give all the content free, but if you want to speak to me, then it's chargeable to speak to me. And I'm very transparent about that. But you have the content there, because in my head, it's me taking my time, and I have to almost compensate for the fact that my time is being taken. Do you understand? So I'm very like that. So it's all there for you. All you need. I'm always adding articles, always adding changes to anything that's happened in the industry. It's all there for you. It is, let me tell you, this is your best friend if you're ever struggling, but it is also where you start from if you're getting into the financial system
Okay.
as well. So there's a financial education part, and also there's a section to help you stay out of debt, which includes the spend circle, articles about the spend
I like
circle,
the spend circle.
how you
It's amazing.
different ways that society will can push you down the route, and how you stay focused to stay away from it.
Okay.
Okay.
Amazing. Honestly, this has been such a brilliant conversation. I've learned a lot. A lot. I mean, people have been hearing me saying throughout the podcast, like, honestly, it's been like, really feel, like I said, I've been watching your videos from before. So really appreciate you sharing all the wisdom, tips, insights. I know that the watchers and listeners are going to really enjoy this episode. Do you have any final words for watchers and listeners?
Just don't stress about that. It's a game. Just understand the rules before you play the game. Once you know the rules, you won't stress. Okay, so it's nothing to worry about, and take your time, and don't be careful who you listen to. That's very important, because when you're in debt, there's a lot of people who may give you the wrong advice. So yeah, but you'll see, I have articles on my site that you can see that will explain more.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Oye.
You're
Thank you for
welcome.
your time. Thank you, watchers and listeners, for tuning into this episode of the podcast, and see you next week's episode.